first of all, thanks for the invitation. It's really nice to be here and to share a little bit of the story of Zalando. That's what I'm talking here today, and a little bit about myself. So I'm a product delivery lead currently at Zalando. What that means is basically it's very similar to engineering lead role. Before being at Zalando Lisbon, I was in Zalando in Berlin, so I've been with the company for more or less 2.5 years. Before that, I worked at another e-commerce fashion platform called Farfetch, where I was there for almost 3 years. So I love fashion, as you can imagine, because I've been working in 2 e-commerce platforms dedicated to fashion, of course. What I came here to talk with you guys today about Zalando and about how Zalando got to the size that it is currently. So first of all, who knows Zalando here? Much better. A year ago, when I would ask this, normally 2 or 3 people in the audience would know. And who has ever bought at Zalando?
Girls.
Yeah. Still a little bit hard because we're still not selling in Portugal, unfortunately, but we are selling across Europe, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So, one of the reasons that I showed this image here, does anyone know where this is?
Tokyo.
Yeah? So this is the Shibuya crossing, right? It's one of the most famous. It shows up in a lot of movies, and it's incredible how people do not go against each other, and this actually works. And the reason is why, because there's a lot of principles that the Japanese culture follows that enables people to not bump to each other. And I actually know this, and it's also a personal thing, because I was just last week here. And it was my first time in Japan, and I was completely admired by their culture and how 38 million people do not kill themselves all the time, because it's a huge city, but it works very well. And it's about the principle and how things work. And Zalando is a company that has a vision that is about connecting people in fashion. So talking a little about what is the company and talking about some of the numbers, and this is a very interesting part always. It was a company that last year made 5.4 billion. So this is the amount of GMV from the fashion store. We have more than 15,500 employees. I think it's already more than 16,000. 250 million visits, 26 million active customers, and more than 300,000 SKUs. Okay, so this is not a small company, it's quite big. It was a company that started basically with a few people, and in 10 years, it got to this size. So as I mentioned, we have more than 2 international brands, 17 private labels. So Zalando does not just sell products from other brands, but has their own brands, and we make all the items and we sell them also. And curated shopping, this is another company that belongs to the Zalando group called Zalon, and we have other several small business units inside of the Zalando group. We can talk about that a little bit later. And we are a tech company, basically, okay? So in technology, we have more than 2,000 people. So it's quite interesting and quite big, and 8 international tech locations. Most of them are in Berlin, but then we also have offices in Hamburg, in Helsinki, in Dublin, Dortmund, and most recently here in Lisbon for the last 1 year and 2 months, basically. The headquarters are in Berlin, as mentioned. And in terms of the culture that we have in terms of tech, we have a couple of things like hack weeks, tech academies, user labs, self-organized skills that we have more than 170, and this has been happening across the 10 years that the company's been growing. So this is just to give you basically a scope of what the company is. And then we're going to talk, so how did we got here? So the picture on the left is the first picture of the first Christmas dinner, where this was how big the company was back then. And 2 of the founders are actually here. And this is the photo that we took on the 10-year anniversary in August last year. And this is just a sample of the people, because not even half of the company was actually at the party. So how did we manage to go from a size like this to this, once again, not killing each other on the way? Well, when we started, in terms of tech, we started, basically the website was a Magento, selling flip-flops in Berlin. Okay, this was 2008. Basically, I think it was Robert Gens, one of the founders, was buying flip-flops at the end of that street, taking them to the office. They put it on this Magento amazing website done in PHP and sell it online just to prove the concept. Okay, this was the first few weeks. They proved the concept, it worked, by the way, awesome place to sell flip-flops, Berlin, because it's very hot, of course. And the company started basically selling shoes. This was for the first two years, was just selling shoes. The company was scaling, growing, basically still developing everything on this Magento website. As it started growing, it was impossible to keep doing this in Magento, and it started growing to more monolith application. There was a Java application. The company kept growing and basically had the normal organization that, a little bit like Nuno was talking, like you have a teams that they have a tech lead, they have QA, they have a couple of product people working there. So the standard organization that you have in tech companies and agile companies, it was how the company was working. And it kept growing for the first 5-6 years like this. And it worked. And it was getting there, it was very successful. It was the fastest unicorn in Europe ever. So it was growing like fast, almost profitable already in 2014. It became public. The company was then starting to make money, was recognized all over Europe. People were getting very excited, was crossing to other markets. It wasn't just in Germany, it was in Austria, Switzerland, and kept growing. It is now currently in 17. Everything was working perfectly, right? But then as you hire more people with this kind of organization, and with a huge monolith that would take more than 2-3 days sometimes just to deploy, things were not working. Something had to change. And what we basically wanted to do is that we wanted to enable people to do what they love. This was the biggest challenge that management and all the leadership had. How could they enable people to do what they love? With all this structure that was created, with all this monolith, it was not working, okay? There was new technology that people wanted to try. It was not possible to do it back then. So in 2015, we came with a very interesting concept that I don't know if any of you guys ever heard about this, that it's called radical agility. Has anyone ever heard about this? He didn't get here. I'll say. João knows this because he worked in Berlin back then, also in Zalando, and he went through this transformation exactly. So it is an architecture for innovation. What does this mean is that we try to make a really big change, and this happened literally from one day to the next. And we wanted to enable teams to move fast, to try different things, and we came up with a lot of different concepts that we wanted for the teams to move fast. Some of them make a lot of sense, like we moved from an architecture having microservices, from monoliths to microservices. It makes perfect sense. Everything was API first. Everything made sense for us to have API first. And this is like, it looks so simple now, and that most of the companies are actually moving to this, but for us it was a big change. Something that we removed also, like you had QA in the teams, but suddenly you no longer have QA. So teams are responsible to make the testing, monitoring, and alerting, very similar to what Nuno also mentioned. So basically people, we no longer have manual QA. Okay, so teams are responsible to do that also. Everything became on the cloud. Also, we had huge data center that now we still have a couple of things there, but everything moved to AWS. All this, from one day to the next, we wanted to make this change to enable teams to move fast. And then the other changes were related to 3 pillars that we built for this change: purpose, mastery, and autonomy. We took some lessons learned from Daniel Pink's book called Drive, and how to motivate people and how to keep people motivated. And we use these 3 pillars for each one of the teams. So the purpose is that every team that works in this company has a purpose. They have a mission, very based also on what Nuno said. We understand exactly what is the purpose of that team. This most of the times is developed by the product team that works with that. The mastery means that every one of us has a responsibility to become better and better. And we have opportunities to get better on that. And I'll talk a little bit about that after talking about autonomy. We gave autonomy to the teams. What this means is that we gave them fully autonomy to develop with the technology that they wanted, to bring the best solution possible for the problems they had to do. Not every technology. We have a take rather that we kind of tell them the best technologies that we already proved that they work, others that we're assessing, frameworks, everything. So we have already some information across the company. There's a lot of guidelines that help people to understand exactly what can work for their problem or not. In the part of the mastery, what happened is that we also created a shared leadership model. What this means is that every team had not one lead, but 2 leads. One was called the delivery lead and the other one practice lead. Delivery lead, as the name says, was responsible to make sure that the teams would deliver at the end of every sprint, 2 weeks, 1 week, whatever sprint they would create. They were autonomous to choose that, what kind of agile they wanted to do, was Scrum or Kanban, whatever. They are autonomous to choose that. And the practice lead is responsible for the performance and feedback and for the mastery, also part of this pillar. So every engineer had one practice lead that could help them and coach them in getting better and better. Also would be responsible to give them a lot of feedback. Also be responsible for their performance evaluation at the end of each year, right? All this surrounded by a lot of trust with all some of the principles that I talked to you, and also having a lot of feedback. Feedback culture was really implemented back then. It didn't exist a lot until then. And this is when we started scaling also, if I'm not mistaken, from around like 500 engineers to 1,200, 1,300 engineers. This was like very fast growing. Like in a year and a half, we doubled the team, the engineering team. And this was incredible because this was the reason I was hired, actually, because when they talked to me about radical agility, I was very inspired and very motivated to join the company. It felt like the perfect plan where you basically hire extremely smart people, get out of the way, and just let them do whatever they want because they're really good at it. And it seems like the perfect plan, right? I mean, it's the perfect, especially when you're an engineer, you really look forward for having the chance to try to use the technology, to use your knowledge in the best way possible. But also it comes with some challenges, like giving autonomy. It's not always the best strategy. Autonomy needs to be earned most of the time. Needs to be understand that it's not just I can do whatever I want when I want. Especially because this is a company has a business and needs to be profitable at the end of the year. And this became a big challenge for us, and we had to bring accountability, right? Responsibility can be shared, but accountability cannot. And we had to bring this, and this was the next iteration. And this is the current model that we have, that is called dedicated ownership. What this means, it's a holistic role of leadership that takes business, product, and engineering. It means that you're kind of like the CEO of a company, the CEO of a group, and you are responsible and accountable end to end. Let me give you the example that I think is the most successful example that we had. We sell clothes. One of the biggest challenges is sizing, right? You go to the store, you do try things, you see your size, you see if it fits or not, and you can choose easily the size that if you want up or down. When you buy online, well, it must be an S, XL, maybe, let's see, you order, but sometimes that model doesn't fit. What happens currently is that 40% of the returns that we have, it's because of sizing. We wanted to reduce this, right? But this has so many touch points. If you think about sizing, all the returns part, all the information that we show in the product detail page and everything, you would have to include more than 30 or 40 teams on this discussion. What we did is that with dedicated ownership, we gave this topic to a very senior lead that had responsibility end to end to make this happen. Okay, so Stacey is a very senior lead. She's incredible. She has an enormous experience on this area. She picked this topic. She built a team. She built the purpose of this. She took this end to end, and she made that our returns in terms of sizing reduced 20%. And this is because the dedicated ownership worked. Okay. The fact that we are a very big company right now, okay, some of the process take a lot of time. It takes a lot of meetings, a lot of alignments with many different teams. The dedicated ownership is kind of like own the shit so that you can make things get into the end. Okay, if you're in a small company, you don't have so much pain like to deliver as what we want. When you're in a company as Zalando, you do. It touches so many small things with all the microservices that you have that you really need to have a very good alignment globally. And the dedicated owner came to help to improve that and to increase the speed to deliver. All this, like kind of this three models that I just talked to you came during the last few years on the growth of the company, right? There was a lot of lessons learned, of course. There was a lot of things that worked. There was a lot of things that we expected to work and didn't work. There were many different lessons learned. I bring you a couple of them that I think it's it's a good thing to share with you. Like, especially we're a fashion company, and we do know that one size does not fit all. And what this means is that we gave a lot of autonomy to the teams, but in the beginning we didn't give autonomy to departments, excuse me, or to small business units. We all had the same structure, and not always this works. Depending on the people that you have, depending on the challenge that you have, it doesn't mean that we all need to have the same structure. It doesn't mean that we need to all have the same way of working. We gave a lot of autonomy to the teams once again, but the departments were not autonomous. And this is something that with the dedicated ownership we're changing. It makes sense that people have autonomy and business owners have autonomy to take also decisions to have different structures. Another thing is that autonomy without accountability is like vacations. This was a very hard lesson that we learned. Okay, and João is here. He's been in the company for almost 6 years. You know that this autonomy was extremely motivating for people, but it also brought us a lot of big challenges that we're still paying now. Okay, and it got to a point that sometimes people just understood that autonomy is I do whatever I want when I want. Not always is like that, of course, and actually it's true. If you're not accountable, saying that you're autonomous is like being on a vacation, because when you go on vacation, do whatever you want, right? Whatever you want, the time you want, and that is one of the things that I think is crucial, and that this word brings in terms of culture to the teams is that they are accountable for everything. Another thing is that getting the basics right, it's extremely important to scale teams, to scale organizations, and it's extremely hard to get them right, okay? When Zalando started expanding to have different locations, we're a tech company, everything should be solved through tech, it seems so easy, but then when you move to different countries, everything works differently, the law is different, everything is different, okay? Having the infrastructure, having all the basics right for the people and the teams to start delivering and developing is not that easy when it starts. We have more than 250 delivery teams. And it seems should be so basic, but it's not. The company grew so fast that sometimes you even forget about the basic things. And getting the basics right is really hard. I think it's a challenge for every company, no matter what the size is. Getting this right and getting this in a very strong foundation that enables teams to develop really fast, it's hard. Another lesson is that, well, always be grateful and enjoy this ride because it's incredible. It's very, very unique. You know, the experience that we went, and especially in the last 2.5 years that I've been in the company, it's incredible how you need to fast adapt to the change. And you know, all these strategies that companies have on changing, and how the models of leadership and the structures of the teams change continuously. We need to be ready. It's not uncommon that things will change really fast. Things will keep changing very, very, very fast, and you just need to go with it and enjoy it. And the thing that we learned the most is that what actually scales, it's the principles. You know, it's not, you can do a lot of structures here and there and leadership models and everything, but what it really scales are going to be the principles. And I bring you a couple of them that for us were crucial, that made the company continuously scale. Okay, I'm not going to read all of them. Okay, this is a part of the tech constitution that we have, and that are principles for the teams, for the individuals, for the company, where we have things like do the right thing when your boss is wrong. We empower people to do this. Okay, and we have discussions about this, of course, and we expect people to challenge this and to continuously learn things that we want, and to encourage people to try new things. And all these principles, this is what is going to scale, no matter what is the model that we're going to have of leadership in a couple of years, no matter what is going to change in the next few months, no matter if the company is going to grow and double the size, or if it's going to reduce the size, the principles are there. And this is what it was really important for us in the last few years, is that in terms of the culture, that people understood that, yes, we are here, we're all going to fail, especially fail a lot. When we talk about leadership, we're continuously failing because it's a part of the human nature, and that we encourage people to really thrive, to really fight for what they believe that is best, and to really work with us towards to have a better solution for our customers. We're customer obsessed, yes, because our customers are the most important thing that we have. We have internal customers, we have external customers. Everything is very important for us, and this is what we really believe that it's been scaling the last few years in a company. It's been the principles. That's pretty much it. So thank you, and feel free to chit chat.